So one thing that really desperately needs to be done is how we're going to eventually mount the whole machine in the workshop. Now the roof on my workshop is very tall, as you can see, because I can reach it. Yes, it's very tall. So because the roof of the workshop is so high, I am going to mount it outside, and to do that I am building like a full-on enclosure for it, pretty much like a mini shed. And that is going to take a lot of work. It's probably like a project in itself. And so we better get started on that one. First off with leveling the floor. Here I'm using some tape to seal up the corners. Once the form was in place, I could mix up the self-leveling cement and attempt to pour it, which wasn't nearly enough, as you can see. So therefore I had to add more coats to it, and once the recoat time recommended by the manufacturer was up, I mixed more bags, and this time I used a much bigger bag, and as a result I had to use my trolley and poured more into it. Unfortunately I forgot to turn on my microphone for this section, and this is why you see this absolutely godsend brilliant presentation. Yep, so vivid. Well, shit, the mic was not on. Alright, it's been overnight and it should be dry. Let's see how we did. So, seems like there's a lot of air bubbles, if you can maybe pick it up. Yeah, you see the bumps on the surface? I think those are like air bubbles trying to rise up. Yeah, which isn't too good because that means it's not flat. But not sure how I might get rid of those. Might be able to just scrape them away since they're so small. But let's just check how level it is. And of course it is not level. Yeah, we are quite a ways off from being level. Jeez, we still need that much. After not one, not two, but 3 pours. Yep, that's right. I poured it 3 times to finally get it to be roughly level. It's actually still not perfect. There's still a little bit of an incline. But I actually can't make it any thicker because the manufacturing instructions say that I can't make it thicker than 25mm, and I am already quite a bit thicker, so don't want to risk it, to be honest. I can then remove the form and start building the frame. Alright, that's one frame done. Time for a second one. Now time to lay down some groundwork, which is just some moisture barriers, and I'm using a bit of silicone underneath it to help seal it up. And I don't know why my camera is acting up and the autofocus is not working, and that's why it's so blurry. Just like when I don't have glasses on. Next I am removing the angle on the roof of the workshop so that the new enclosure can butt up right against it. So yeah, I'm currently just thinking through how the heck am I going to extend this wall up when there's so many of these metal brackets in the way. Yeah, it's definitely not going to be easy. So my original plan was to basically build it so that the back panel is directly connected to the workshop. But because the caps here are really complicated, and some are simply not practical to remove, and once I remove it, it's really hard to provide a watertight seal again with the wall protruding past the workshop. So instead, I've got a bit of a change of plan, and that is we're going to build this as a completely separate unit from the workshop, pretty much. So the back wall is basically not going to be joined with the workshop. It's going to have a little bit of a gap to basically allow those caps to run through, but we are going to seal that gap up. So yeah, and hopefully nothing gets in between, otherwise might be in trouble because I won't be able to clean it. So once I had it square, I can put in the bolts, like concrete bolts, and the concrete was surprisingly very easy to drill through, and that is why later on I changed it to much bigger and longer bolts. Here I am adding a spacer between the frame and the wall to stop it from slanting in. Once I had that secured down, I can now work on the other frame, which is basically the same. I just need to put on some silicone at the bottom and lift it up. Yep. Here I am checking for squareness by measuring the diagonals. So as you probably can see, I took the roof cap off, and there are quite a bit of gaps that I have to fill before I can actually install the back wall for this, otherwise it's just going to leak. And I'm just going to use some expanding foam and hopefully it'll work. So this was actually my first time using expanding foam, and I really didn't expect it to expand this much, hence why I just thought that scraping it off would be enough to stop it from expanding, which clearly didn't. Luckily I did realise at the end to put on the caps, otherwise I would not have been able to fit them on. I was not prepared. Next is cutting the roof to fit on. Well, once again, my saw isn't big enough to finish the cut. Honestly, maybe we should build a bigger table saw after this. So I'll just snap it off and finish it off with a chisel, which is easy enough if my chisels were sharp. Now I'm machining the other end. So I've somehow lost the footage of how I got those beams up there, but you'll just see how I managed to secure them down instead. So once I got the beams fitted, I can start putting on the moisture barrier, which is just a blue coat, and here I'm putting some silicone to help seal it up. And putting this up was a lot of trouble, mainly because of the wind, and like I was just one person working, and I remember halfway I ran out of staples, which was great. Once I cut it, I wrap the overhanging edge so that it's more waterproof, I guess. And getting down from this position is always hard. Like, goddamn. Now trying to lift the panel up to the roof, so if it's not evident, I'm trying to use a permanent marker to mark the correct slope I need to cut it. This was definitely very difficult. So here I am trying to put an angle between the roof of my shed and the side wall of the cabinet, and this is the place where I kind of regret the most because this is probably the weakest place. I really should have hooked that L-shaped plastic underneath the wall of the cabinet. Yeah, because right now the only thing that's stopping water from leaking in is all of that foam, which I don't know how hard to rely on, to be honest, but so far it hasn't leaked yet. What I should have done is like here, where I wrapped the L-shaped bit underneath the corrugated sheet. Once I got the corners in, I sprayed the underneath surface with foam to seal it up completely, but the can was almost empty. Next I cut some blocks of wood, which is to space out the other wall. So because of that bulge over there, from, not sure actually, might be the foam expanding and then pushing the metal sheet back. Either way, it's expanded now and it's not exactly pushable, and as a result it has left this frame kind of slanted like this, and it sticks out quite a bit. Sticks out this much, and that isn't really acceptable. So what I'll do is remove these two screws and move this piece over there, because at the bottom it actually lines up, and then just cut that piece off. So after making the wall pretty stable, I can put on some drip rock. However, I forgot to turn on the microphone again, and unfortunately for you, it just means less satisfying for you as you can't hear the sound. For me, it was really good, just screw after screw. So next is just putting in the insulation, which I think is definitely the next most satisfying thing of the build. However, from all the dust from the insulation and from learning about interstitial lung disease, I'm definitely gonna die. 100%. Also, my camera just went out of focus out of nowhere for no reason at all. It's all insulated now. Yep, all that. Yes, big on insulation because I don't want any sound to come out. Yeah, that's the goal, but not that it's achievable. Next, I'm trying to make the doors for the enclosure. Because I had used up all the thin rivets in another project, I only had thick rivets left, and they were super duper hard to get in. What a workout. Now I'm just putting on some wetting strips on the corrugated edge to provide a weather tight seal. This door is kind of special because it is the door leading to the exhaust chamber of the enclosure, and so it has this square opening at the bottom for the air to come out. And to insulate, I didn't bother building a frame for the insulation, I just wrapped it in some fly screen and screwed it on. In case I didn't mention this previously, a major goal of this enclosure is soundproofing the blower. Just to finish some of the insulation before putting the door on. This door is also not easily openable as it is screwed on. I didn't really see opening this regularly as a need, as it's supposedly just empty space to act as a buffer for the sound of the blower. The other doors are quite straightforward with a basic wooden frame and corrugated sheet on the surface. out of my 6 or 7 years of woodworking, this is the most twisted door I have ever seen. But I guess it kind of matches the style of the impeller things. Nah, screw that. What the heck is this? Actually, what the heck? What the heck is not even close there? It is insane. But that's okay. I'm planning to make a kind of like a screw-on latch. I'm just gonna screw on about here. It looks like it's gonna work at this height, so I don't need to put a screw all the way at the top. And yeah. Also, the hinge is definitely binding because the hinge is quite tight. So it's definitely binding somewhere, but that's alright. It will live, just not for long. Just a nice simple screw on handle, and it seems to work okay. Then I can work on putting the sidewalls on, and here I had Mum to help me just temporarily hold the wall up. This part was when all my past bouldering experiences has finally paid off. So it is pretty much all done. Just have the electricity left. Today is actually forecast rain, so I actually have to pack all of this up. Just look at this mess, honestly. Especially my workshop. Jesus Christ, what the frick. Oh my god. It is not an inviting scene. What the heck is my table saw doing? What the frick? Okay, after a brief moment of cleaning up off camera, I can finally do the wiring for the enclosure. Now, I'm by no means an electrician, so don't do this at home. So next thing we need to confirm is whether or not there's a stud, like transverse stud, that goes across like this, whether it's above or below. And by the looks of it, it seems to be above. So that means we will have to somehow go through this stud and then come through on the top here. Still not all the way through. There we are. Editing was definitely quite interesting because it definitely looks like I'm twerking, but it's actually just sped up. Don't worry, it's still PG. Alright, so what I've got in plan, some nice thick wire. I'm gonna try and feed it through, and hopefully it'll hit the other hole. Yeah, it sounds absolutely insane, but we'll give it a shot. If it doesn't work, I'll probably try and make a hole here and try and get my tweezers in to search for it. Jeez, these angled holes are not gonna help at all. And here comes the massive saga of me struggling to feed the wire through. At the end I even put a little hole on the side, as I said, if it didn't work, the backup plan. And that still didn't work. Here's me struggling from a different angle. And you know, when a laparoscopic keyhole surgery doesn't work, we do a open abdomen surgery. So that's exactly what I did. Yeah. had to putty it back up. Definitely took longer to recover. And now on the other side, got to put a box in. And on the inside, trying to find where the wire is. So my workshop has 2 circuits in it where I built it, and one dedicated for a dust collector and one for the rest of the machinery. Here I'm just trying to locate which one is which. Now I can put on a switch using the correct wire, hopefully. Okay, so I just went back to turn the power on and my chargers are working, so I suppose I haven't shorted anything yet. Let's just check whether I got the right wire or not. Okay, so my bento should work. It should still work. Oh wait, I need to check whether it does regarding of the switch. So it turns on regardless of the switch. That means that I have gotten the right wire. Now time to see what's happening at the back. Oh. So it should be on. And hopefully I don't electrocute myself. So this thing should be on, unless I got the switch the other way round. Ah yes, and my thing is on. And 242 volts. Yep, so it works. I'll just switch the switch over so that it's less confusing. The last step is just putting on back the off cut and plastering it back on. I guess that ends this part of the saga, or my struggles. Hopefully the next video won't take half a year to publish.